Middle East tensions simmer as ceasefire holds amidst nuclear concerns. Washington, D.C., June 27, 2025. A fragile ceasefire currently holds between Israel and Iran, concluding a 12-day conflict marked by unprecedented direct U.S. military intervention and significant strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. While daily life in Israel begins to normalize, profound uncertainties persist regarding the long-term implications of the conflict, particularly concerning Iran's nuclear ambitions and regional stability. Ceasefire and Aftermath, a tense pause. The recent hostilities saw Israel launch extensive strikes against Iranian military and nuclear sites, to which Iran retaliated with missile attacks on Israel. The United States dramatically escalated its involvement on June 21, 2025, launching direct military airstrikes, dubbed Operation Midnight Hammer, against three key Iranian nuclear sites, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. This marked the first-ever direct U.S. military attack on Iranian territory. In retaliation for these U.S. strikes, Iran launched a missile attack on June 23, 2025, targeting the Al Udeid airbase in Qatar, the largest U.S. military installation in the Middle East. Qatari air defenses successfully intercepted all 14 Iranian missiles, with no reported casualties or damage to military infrastructure. Notably, U.S. President Donald Trump publicly thanked Iran for providing advanced notice of the strike, suggesting a mutual desire to contain the conflict. Prior to the attack, the U.S. had taken precautions, including moving most of its unhanged aircraft out of Al Udeid. Iran's nuclear program. Damaged but not destroyed. The central question remains, how much has Iran's nuclear program been impacted? Contrasting assessments. While Israel claims its strikes inflicted systemic and profound damage, setting back Iran's nuclear program by several years, U.S. intelligence assessments present a more cautious view, suggesting the strikes only delayed Iran's nuclear capabilities by months, not years. These assessments indicate that not all key facilities were destroyed, nor was all of Iran's highly enriched uranium. Targeting Fordo. The U.S. strikes, specifically at Fordo, involved GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, MOPE, bunker buster bombs, designed to penetrate up to 200 feet underground. Fordo's unique construction, buried 80 to 90 meters, 260 to 300 feet beneath solid rock, necessitated this specialized U.S. capability, as Israel's own bunker busters were not powerful enough. Satellite imagery shows 6 distinct holes punched into the mountain above Fordo, indicating severe damage, but the extreme depth makes full underground damage assessment difficult from satellites alone. Relocated uranium stockpiles. A significant concern is that Iran reportedly relocated most of its near-weapons-grade 60% highly enriched uranium, over 400 kilograms, to undisclosed locations before the strikes, minimizing material losses. This 60% enrichment level is a strategic provocation and a short technical step from weapons-grade 90%, potentially achievable in as little as 2 weeks. IAEA access blocked. Iran has reportedly restricted the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, from verifying the current location or exact amount of its enriched uranium since the strikes. The head of the IAEA, Rafael Grossi, also expressed concerns about potential radiological and chemical contamination from damaged sites like Natanz, warning that ongoing military escalation increases this risk. Rebuilding potential. While the strikes caused severe damage to enrichment facilities and centrifuges, significantly slowing Iran's ability to further enrich uranium, existing stockpiles were not destroyed. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has publicly stated nuclear sites are operational and that preparations for recovery were already in place. Experts suggest that while the program has been seriously set back, it can be reconstituted. Iran is considering whether to cease cooperation with the IAEA and withdraw from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, which would leave the world in the dark about its nuclear activities. Iranian intentions, buying time for a bomb? Based on recent intelligence assessments, Iran appears to be leveraging diplomatic negotiations while actively working to reconstitute its nuclear capabilities. Its actions suggest a strategy to preserve and advance its nuclear weapons potential. Uranium preservation. Iran's intact and largely relocated uranium stockpiles, particularly the 60% enriched material, could be rapidly upgraded to weapons grade 90%. Limited damage. The strikes caused delays, not outright destruction, and Iran's leadership has affirmed their intent to continue nuclear activities. Diplomatic maneuvering. Iran has resumed talks with the U.S. but has rejected core demands, such as zero uranium enrichment, removal of highly enriched uranium stockpiles, and restrictions on ballistic missiles. Iran has also dismissed U.S. offers of sanctions relief, prioritizing military nuclear goals. Strategic risk. With enriched uranium secured and repairable infrastructure, Iran could shorten the timeline to a functional nuclear weapon if diplomatic talks collapse. Political and security developments. Within Iran, the regime has intensified internal security, arresting hundreds suspected of collaborating with Israel and deploying forces to sensitive regions. Israel's defense minister announced plans for a new enforcement strategy to maintain military pressure and prevent Iran's nuclear and missile advancements. This includes a stern warning from Israel's military that any attempts to restore terror capabilities in the region would be targeted. U.S. involvement and domestic divisions. President Trump personally brokered the ceasefire and authorized the direct U.S. airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites. His decision-making was influenced by a June 8, 2025, briefing from Air Force General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which reportedly convinced Trump of Israel's heightened anxiety over Iran's accelerating nuclear enrichment. The U.S. had also provided crucial intelligence, munitions, and advanced defense systems to Israel for its prior week-long campaign against Iran. Domestically, U.S. involvement in the conflict has divided Republicans, including Trump's closest allies. An impeachment bid against President Trump, initiated by Representative Al Green, D. Texas, for allegedly usurping Congress's power to declare war, was decisively blocked in the House of Representatives in a bipartisan vote. This outcome highlighted a significant lack of unified response among Democrats regarding Trump's military actions, with many, including Democratic leadership, voting to table the resolution. President Trump's stance: peace through strength. President Trump's rhetoric has been a mix of strong assertions and diplomatic overtures. While he declared the strikes very successful and emphasized U.S. military prowess, he also called for peace immediately after the strikes. This juxtaposition of overwhelming force and an invitation for negotiation from a position of strength has been interpreted as coercive diplomacy. Officially, Trump and his administration have stated that the U.S. does not seek regime change in Iran, focusing instead on ending Iran's nuclear program. Trump has explicitly said he doesn't want chaos from regime change. However, he has also publicly speculated about regime change on social media, creating a degree of ambiguity. The administration's military actions were framed as targeted measures to degrade nuclear capabilities, not to initiate a broader conflict or boots on the ground. It is reasonable to conclude that the Trump administration prioritizes averting war, but unequivocally reserves the right to military intervention to block Iran's path to nuclear weapons. Potential costs of prolonged conflict. The current situation carries significant potential costs for all parties. United States economic stability is at risk due to potential oil market instability, particularly if Iran blocks the Strait of Hormuz, which could lead to a $150–200 billion annual economic impact if sustained, exacerbated by existing inflation. Military expenditures for direct strikes and regional deployments also strain the defense budget. Iran, the nation faces severe economic hardship, with potential GDP losses of $400–800 billion from pre-war sanctions. Critical oil and gas revenue disruptions could lead to economic collapse if the Strait of Hormuz is blocked. The regime also incurs costs from intensified internal security measures. Israel, the active conflict imposed daily costs of $725 million, with a month-long war projected to cost $12 billion. Israel faces economic paralysis from reservist mobilization, high-tech sector disruptions, and reconstruction needs, with cumulative costs exceeding $67.5 billion since 2023. Civilian areas have been impacted, with over 5,000 evacuated from border areas. U.S. oil production, limits to global impact. While the U.S. is currently producing record levels of oil, around 13.5 million barrels per day, it cannot fully replace Middle Eastern oil on the global market in the event of a major disruption. The world consumes over 100 million barrels per day, and disruptions in Middle Eastern supply would inevitably spike global prices. Even with increased production, the U.S. faces significant limits to rapidly expanding output, including geological constraints as productive fields mature, supply chain bottlenecks for equipment and skilled labor, investor reluctance to rapidly reinvest in aggressive production growth, time lag of about 6 months from drilling to significant new production. The fact that U.S. production is expected to peak around 2027 and the country still consumes more oil than it produces. The current ceasefire is described as fragile, with both sides claiming victory. Iran's nuclear program is damaged but not destroyed, and there's a risk Iran could accelerate its nuclear work in response. Regional and domestic security tensions remain high, underscoring the monumental nature of this event that has fundamentally redefined geopolitical dynamics in the Middle East and beyond. Thanks for watching. End of transmission.